The sky above Zephyria burned with colors that seemed alive. Shades of violet and green swirled over the horizon, painting the clouds in strange patterns. But the beauty of the sky could not hide the suffering below. The forests were dying. Rivers boiled under a strange heat, and creatures that once thrived were disappearing. Cities that had glittered like jewels now sat cracked and broken, with walls crumbling under their own weight. In the capital city of Zephyra, the council gathered in panic. Tall, slender beings with luminescent skin paced the chambers, their large eyes reflecting worry and fear. Every species in the galaxy knew Zephyria as a peaceful, creative world. Its people were brilliant artists, engineers, and thinkers. And now they were helpless. "This cannot continue," said Valera, the council leader, her voice trembling. "Our seas are boiling. Our forests are dying. We cannot survive much longer." Another council member, Jorvan, shook his head. "We've tried everything we know. Our machines cannot repair the land fast enough. The energy flows of the planet itself are failing. I do not see how we can fix this without help from outside." Valera's eyes shone with desperation. "Then we send the message. We broadcast a call for aid to the galaxy." Jorvan hesitated. "Are you sure?" "The galaxy may not care. Many will see our world as too dangerous or unworthy." Valera's gaze was sharp. "We have no choice. If we wait, we die." In the communications chamber, a team of Zephyrians prepared the signal. It would not be a simple message. It was encoded with urgency, emotion, and every data they had about their dying planet. They broadcast it in all directions, hoping someone would respond. Far from Zephyria, in the black void of space, a small fleet of human ships drifted quietly. These humans were not the kind who shied away from danger. They had trained on Deathworlds, planets that would kill most beings instantly. They had seen storms that ripped mountains apart, seas that could dissolve metal, and skies that burned with deadly radiation. Yet here they were, curious and unafraid. The youngest of the human fleet, Lieutenant Mara Bennett, was monitoring communications when the Zephyrian signal appeared on her screen. Her eyes widened. "Commander! We've picked up a distress signal. It's coming from Zephyria. The planet is unstable. They need help." Commander Rylan Hart stood behind her, scanning the data. His face, usually calm, betrayed concern. "To Zephyria, I've read about this world. It's beautiful but dangerous. Many species have tried to help before, and failed. Are you sure we should respond?" Mara's fingers hovered over the controls. "If anyone can help them, it's us. This isn't just a simple rescue mission. They're on the edge of extinction. We can't just ignore that." Hart considered for a long moment. Then with a slow nod, he said, "Plot a course. We go." The journey to Zephyria was long but quiet. Human ships moved through the darkness with the kind of efficiency that came from decades of surviving impossible situations. No alarms, no drama, just precision. As they approached Zephyria, the colors of the sky became visible even from orbit. Mara pressed her hand against the window, awed despite the warning signs below. "The planet, it's still beautiful," she murmured. "Even like this." Hart studied the orbital scans. "Beauty doesn't make it safe. Surface temperatures are unpredictable. Forests are collapsing. The cities, they're barely standing. Our landing will need care." Below, Zephyrians watched the skies anxiously. They had seen ships before, but most did not stop. Most simply passed by, unwilling to risk the planet's dangers. And yet these ships slowed, entered orbit, and began scanning the surface. Hope sparked in their hearts. When the humans finally descended, they did so with a calm determination. Mara led the first landing party. The ground shook under the force of the landing thrusters, sending dust into the air. Zephyrians fled to the edges of the city, fear and curiosity battling in their minds. Mara stepped out, her boots sinking slightly into cracked earth. She looked around. The city was in ruins, but the remnants of art and architecture told stories of a once great civilization. She bent down to touch the soil, feeling the heat and dryness. "Commander," she said over the communicator, "we need to start with stabilizing the atmosphere. The temperature swings are extreme. If we can regulate heat and humidity, we can prevent further damage to their cities and forests." Hart's voice crackled in her earpiece. "Agreed, Mara, lead the team. I'll coordinate from the ship. Remember, the Zephyrians are fragile. We must respect them and their world." The humans set up small machines that hummed and clicked, slowly beginning to stabilize localized areas. They worked methodically, using skills learned on Deathworlds where failure meant death. Machines that purified water, adjusted air quality, and cooled overheated areas began to make a difference almost immediately. The Zephyrians watched with astonishment. They are not afraid," whispered one. "They step into fire, and yet they are calm. They touch the boiling river and smile. How can this be?" Mara noticed the curious eyes on her. She smiled gently. "We understand danger differently. We don't run from it. We face it, and we find solutions." For the first time in weeks, some Zephyrians dared to step closer, offering small pieces of advice. They pointed to weakened riverbeds, dying plants, and collapsing buildings. The humans listened, learning quickly, adapting their machines and techniques. By evening, small areas of the city had cooled, and patches of forest showed signs of revival. The Zephyrians clapped softly, tears in their eyes. Maybe we can survive," said Valira. But as night fell, an uneasy feeling crept through the city. Deep within the planet, in places the Zephyrians never ventured, something stirred. Ancient creatures, adapted to the harshest environments, shifted in shadowed tunnels. For millennia they had lived unseen, surviving earthquakes, floods, and storms that no other life could endure. Now, the humans' machines disturbed the equilibrium, and the Deathworlders began to awaken. Mara noticed subtle tremors as she checked her instruments. "Commander, something is moving underground. Not seismic. Life, I think. Something is watching us." Hart's response was steady but cautious. "Keep calm. We observe, we do not attack. We've trained for dangerous environments. Whatever it is, we handle it carefully." The Zephyrians huddled in the city square, looking up at the human newcomers. They had called for help, and now help had arrived, not with weapons, not with dominance, but with calm, determination, and intelligence. And yet, unknown to everyone, something ancient and unseen had taken notice of these strange, fearless beings who walked so boldly into danger. The first night ended with the humans camped near the city, the Zephyrians quietly watching, and the shadows beneath the surface moving, studying. A new chapter had begun for Zephyria, one that no one could yet predict. Humans had answered the cry for aid. The Deathworlders had begun to stir. The sun rose over Zephyria, casting strange violet light across the ruined city of Zephira. The humans were already at work. Small machines hummed as they purified water from the boiling rivers. Pipes carried cooled air into crumbling buildings. Slowly, life began to return to areas that had been dead for weeks. Lieutenant Mara Bennett stood on a cracked bridge, her eyes scanning the city. "This place, it's worse than the scans showed," she said to Commander Hart, who was reviewing sensor data on his tablet. Hart nodded. "We've seen worse, but we've also seen planets heal faster than anyone thought possible. Let's get to work." The humans' method was simple: observe, adapt, act. They didn't bring heavy weapons or military authority. Instead, they brought tools, knowledge, and courage, the kind that let them face environments that would kill most species instantly. As they worked, the Zephyrians began to emerge from hiding. They were cautious at first, keeping a safe distance, whispering to each other in their soft, melodic language. Their bodies were fragile, limbs long and thin, skin shimmering faintly. They had evolved to be intelligent and creative, not tough or strong. To them, humans were enormous and startling, yet strangely reassuring. One of the Zephyrians, a young scholar named Lyra, stepped closer than the others. Her violet eyes were wide with curiosity. You are not afraid?" she asked Mara. Mara smiled gently. "We understand danger differently. We don't run from it. We find solutions." Lyra's eyes widened. "Solutions?" "Yes," Mara said. "We see a problem and we fix it. That's what we do." Slowly, the Zephyrians began to offer help. They pointed out collapsed bridges, dangerous riverbanks, and dying plants. Humans listened carefully, noting every detail. Where Zephyrians had expertise about the planet, humans had tools to act. Together, they began to restore small areas. In the city square, Mara and Lyra worked side by side. Mara adjusted a machine that purified water, while Lyra pointed out areas where the soil could be nourished. "We've never seen anyone do this," Lyra whispered, almost to herself. "You touch fire and water that could kill you, and yet you do not fear it." Mara chuckled. "We've walked on planets that can melt steel in minutes. Fear slows us down, so we learn to act." As days passed, humans and Zephyrians started communicating more easily. Hart coordinated larger projects from the orbital ship. He used drones to deliver supplies and scan the environment. Humans built small atmospheric regulators to reduce the boiling heat in rivers, cooling water enough for Zephyrian plants to survive. Zephyrians watched in amazement. They had called for help, but they had not expected the humans to be so fearless, so practical, and so patient. Perhaps they are meant to help us, one elder whispered. One afternoon, a loud rumble shook the city. Dust fell from the ruined towers. Mara ran to check the sensors. Commander, there's movement underground. I can't explain it. It's not seismic. Something, alive, is down there, Hart frowned. Could it be some local animal? Or something bigger? Mara shook her head. It's too organized for animals. Something intelligent, maybe, hiding. The Zephyrians grew uneasy. Underground? That place is empty for centuries, said Lyra. Nothing lives there anymore, or so we thought. Mara studied the readings carefully. Whatever it is, it's not attacking yet, I think. It's curious. It's observing. Hart nodded slowly. We keep our distance. We don't provoke it. We continue our work. Humans are patient. We wait and we watch. As the humans continued their work, small pockets of life began to return. Plants grew stronger. Rivers cooled. Crumbling walls were stabilized. Zephyrians helped where they could, and humans adapted to their suggestions. Mara and her team ventured deeper into the city to repair a collapsed bridge that led to a major water purification station. As they worked, they noticed subtle signs. Footprints in dust that were too large to be Zephyrian, markings on walls that seemed deliberate, and shadows that moved just beyond the corner of vision. Commander, Mara said over the comms, we're not alone down here. Something watches us. It's intelligent but cautious. Hart responded calmly, as always. Keep your focus. Nothing is hostile yet. Document everything, but do not provoke it. We need to understand before we act. That evening, humans returned to their temporary camp in the city square. Zephyrians gathered around them cautiously, curious but fearful. Some whispered among themselves. Do they always act without fear? Asked Lyra. They face danger because they respect it, Mara explained. They do not try to dominate or destroy. They study, they learn, they act carefully. That is their strength. Zephyrians watched silently, beginning to understand a concept foreign to them. Courage paired with intelligence. The next day, Mara and a small team ventured closer to the underground tunnels. Sensors revealed more movement. Creatures adapted to heat, pressure, and darkness, hiding for millennia. The humans slowed their steps, careful not to startle them. From the shadows, pale eyes watched. The Deathworlders had been hidden for centuries, surviving disasters that no other life could endure. They were enormous compared to Zephyrians, muscular and hardy, with skin that shimmered like obsidian. Their minds were sharp, their intelligence cautious. And now, humans had entered their domain. The humans paused at the tunnel entrance. Mara raised her hands, a universal gesture of peace. We do not mean harm, she said softly. From the darkness, a figure stepped forward. The Deathworlder was massive, standing twice the height of a human. Its eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. It studied the humans silently, calculating. Hart spoke calmly through the comms. Observe. We do not engage unless necessary. Let's see if we can communicate without fear. Mara took a deep breath. We come to help. We are here for the planet, not to fight you. The Deathworlder made no sound. It studied them, then slowly stepped back into the shadows. Mara could feel the weight of its gaze. It was a test, a measure of their intent. When Mara returned to the surface, the Zephyrians waited anxiously. Did they attack? Lyra asked. Mara shook her head. No, they are watching. They are intelligent. They are cautious. But we did not provoke them, and that matters. We have to earn their trust. Over the following days, humans continued their work, carefully avoiding confrontation with the Deathworlders. They repaired water channels, stabilized heat zones, and rebuilt key areas of the city. The Zephyrians began to help more actively, bringing their knowledge of the planet's ecosystems to the humans' technology. A small group of Zephyrians, led by Lyra, accompanied Mara into the tunnels cautiously. They did not speak to the Deathworlders at first, only observing. Mara noticed that the Deathworlders were curious but distant. They studied every human movement, learning without interaction. At night, Mara recorded her observations. The Deathworlders are intelligent, but they are survivors. Their world is harsh and they trust no one. We need patience. We do not conquer. We do not demand. We act with care, with respect. That is how trust begins. The Zephyrians listened carefully. They had never seen such behavior before. Humans did not shout, did not threaten, and did not insist on control. They acted with confidence, but with humility. For the first time in weeks, the Zephyrians felt hope. Maybe their world could survive. Maybe the humans could help them. And maybe, just maybe, the Deathworlders could learn to trust them too. As the sun set over Zephyria, casting long purple shadows across the city, Mara stood on the bridge and looked out over the slowly reviving land. She felt a strange calm. They had arrived as strangers, but their presence was already changing the planet. Zephyrians were beginning to believe in life again. And somewhere deep underground, the Deathworlders were watching, learning, and deciding whether to reveal themselves fully. Humans had answered the cry for aid. They had made contact with the Zephyrians, and the shadows beneath the surface were beginning to stir. A new chapter had begun on Zephyria, a chapter of cooperation, courage, and the first tentative steps toward trust between three very different species. The days on Zephyria were changing. Where the humans had worked, small patches of greenery had returned. Rivers cooled slightly and the air smelled fresher. Zephyrians moved with more hope, daring to rebuild parts of their crumbling cities. Yet below the surface, something ancient and powerful stirred. Mara Bennett stood at the edge of a forest watching her small team deploy atmospheric stabilizers. This place, it's starting to heal, she said softly. But there's more than just plants and water. Something lives underground. Commander Hart approached, studying sensor data on his tablet. The Deathworlders are moving closer to the surface. They've been observing for days, maybe weeks. Now they're curious enough to step out of hiding. The humans had learned patience. They did not rush to force contact. They knew from experience that these creatures, adapted to hostile environments, were intelligent but cautious. Any hasty move could drive them away, or worse, provoke hostility. As night fell, Mara and Hart led a small exploration party near a cavern entrance. Soft glow from their suits illuminated the jagged rock walls. They paused at the entrance, sensing the immense presence waiting within. Then slowly the Deathworlders emerged. They were taller than any human, with strong muscular builds and skin that glimmered darkly in the light. Their eyes, reflective and intelligent, scanned the humans carefully. There was no aggression, only observation. Mara stepped forward, holding her hands in the universal gesture of peace. "We come to help the planet. We do not wish to harm you." One Deathworlder tilted its head. Its gaze was sharp, calculating. Slowly, it moved closer, muscles tensing like a predator deciding whether to strike. Yet there was no attack. The creature's body language spoke volumes. It was aware, intelligent, and cautious. Commander Hart spoke through the comms, his voice calm but firm. "Observe. We do not provoke. Our goal is understanding. That is how we begin." The humans waited. Minutes passed like hours. Then the largest Deathworlder stepped fully into the open, his presence commanding. Others remained in the shadows, watching silently. Mara could feel the tension, the weight of ancient survival instincts measuring every movement of the humans. One of the Deathworlders finally made a sound, a low, resonant hum. It was not language humans could understand, but it was not a threat either. Mara interpreted it as curiosity, the first sign of acknowledgement. Over the following days, humans approached carefully, always respecting boundaries. They repaired river channels, stabilized soil, and rebuilt parts of the ruined city. The Deathworlders observed silently, occasionally approaching when humans were calm and careful. Lyra, the young Zephyrian scholar, was fascinated. She followed Mara into the tunnels one day, keeping a respectful distance from the Deathworlders. "Why do they not attack?" she whispered. "They survive where nothing else can," Mara explained. "Their instinct is to be cautious. They do not trust easily. But if we show them patience, respect, and intelligence, they will accept us." Slowly, the Deathworlders began small interactions. One approached Mara while she was repairing a water purifier. It touched the machine lightly with its hand, studying the mechanisms. Mara spoke softly, explaining what the machine did, even though it could not understand her words. The creature's gaze lingered, then it stepped back, seemingly satisfied. Zephyrians watched in awe. Their world had seemed lost, but humans were not only fixing it, they were teaching others how to understand each other without fear. The humans devised a plan to further build trust. They began small projects that required cooperation between species. Mara led one such effort, planting hardy trees along the edge of a decaying forest, with humans handling the machines and Deathworlders moving heavy rocks and debris that Zephyrians could not lift. The scene was remarkable. Zephyrians guided the placement of trees using their knowledge of the soil. Humans operated equipment with calm precision. Deathworlders used their strength and survival instincts to protect fragile seedlings from harsh terrain. Slowly, the three species worked together, not because they had to, but because each had something to offer. Mara felt a strange warmth. "This is how it begins," she said to Hart. "Respect, patience, cooperation. Not force, not dominance. Just teamwork." Hart nodded. "Humans are good at this. We don't need to fight to lead. We just need to show courage, intelligence, and respect. That is enough." Even Zephyrians began to emulate the humans' approach. They moved cautiously into the tunnels, speaking softly to the Deathworlders, offering knowledge about the surface and the plants. The Deathworlders, in turn, allowed Zephyrians to observe their techniques for moving heavy rocks and navigating harsh terrain. A turning point came one afternoon. Mara was surveying a riverbed when she noticed movement in the shadows. Several Deathworlders were attempting to adjust a broken canal to redirect water flow. They struggled, unsure of the best placement. Mara approached carefully. "May I help?" she asked softly. The largest Deathworlder studied her for a long moment. Then, without words, it allowed her to assist. Together they worked side by side, humans, Deathworlders, and Zephyrians each contributing. Water flowed smoothly through the repaired canal, cooling a section of the forest that had been burning under extreme heat. Lyra, observing from a safe distance, whispered, They trust you. They allow you to help." "This is a miracle," Mara shook her head. "Not a miracle. Patience and respect. That is how trust is earned." By nightfall, the Deathworlders had begun to interact more openly. They still maintained distance from humans, but they followed their actions, copying techniques and learning from observation. Zephyrians, inspired by humans' behavior, became more confident and proactive. For the first time in generations, Zephyria seemed capable of survival. Its forests had begun to regrow. Rivers flowed steadily. Even the cities, though scarred, showed signs of life returning. Yet Mara knew this was only the beginning. The planet's problems were immense, and the Deathworlders' cooperation was tentative. Any misstep could undo progress. She reminded her team daily, "We are guests here. We act carefully. We earn trust, not demand it. That is how change happens." As the days turned into weeks, a rhythm emerged. Humans worked on technology and infrastructure. Zephyrians guided ecological restoration. Deathworlders offered strength and resilience. Slowly, a balance formed. One evening, Mara sat with Hart overlooking the recovering forest. "They're remarkable," she said. "Not just the Deathworlders. The Zephyrians and us. We're all learning from each other." Hart smiled. "Humans have always survived in impossible places. But it's more than survival. It's understanding, empathy, and courage. That is what makes a difference." Meanwhile, deep underground, the Deathworlders communicated among themselves. They had observed humans closely and noted their patience, intelligence, and lack of fear. They had never encountered a species like this. Perhaps, they thought, humans could be allies rather than threats. By the end of Part 3, Zephyria had transformed from a dying world into a place of cautious hope. Humans had proven themselves as problem solvers, not conquerors. Zephyrians had learned to trust and participate actively. Deathworlders, once shadows in the deep, had begun to emerge from hiding, tentative but curious. A fragile alliance had begun, based on mutual respect and shared goals. The planet was still fragile and challenges remained, but for the first time survival did not seem impossible. The morning on Zephyria began with an unusual sense of hope. Where once the city of Zephyra had seemed doomed, now small patches of green peeked through the cracks in stone streets. Rivers cooled slightly and flowed more steadily. Even the air felt lighter, less heavy with heat and dust. Humans moved efficiently through the city, leading their teams with calm determination. Mara Bennett had split her team into smaller units, each focusing on a specific task: water purification, soil restoration, infrastructure repair, and wildlife rescue. Every human knew their role and worked without fear, even when machinery hummed dangerously or unstable ground shifted beneath their feet. Zephyrians watched closely, learning quickly. They offered guidance, pointing to places where rivers might be redirected, where soil was rich enough for planting, or where sunlight touched the land in ways humans could not predict. Their knowledge of the fragile ecosystem was invaluable. And then there were the Deathworlders. They emerged from shadowed tunnels more boldly now, moving with a quiet strength that contrasted sharply with the humans' careful methods. Their massive forms carried heavy debris, redirected fallen trees, and stabilized crumbling walls that no human or Zephyrian could have moved alone. The first full collaboration occurred at a large, collapsed river dam near the forest. Water had been spilling uncontrollably, threatening both the city and the forest nearby. Mara led a team of humans, while Deathworlders approached silently, their massive hands ready to move boulders and fallen logs. Zephyrians offered precise measurements and advice about the local soil and currents. "Ready?" Mara asked, glancing at Hart. Hart nodded. "Work carefully. Everyone has a role. Respect each other's methods with precise coordination." Humans directed water flows using temporary channels. Deathworlders shifted massive stones and reinforced natural barriers, and Zephyrians ensured the soil stayed fertile and stable. Within hours, the dam was repaired, and water flowed steadily once more, nourishing both city and forest. A Zephyrian elder standing at the edge of the river whispered in awe. They worked together. "Like one mind," Mara smiled. "It's not one mind. It's many minds learning to understand each other. That's what makes it work." The next challenge was the forest. Much of it had been destroyed by extreme heat and floods. Trees had collapsed, plants had withered, and wildlife had fled. Humans had brought advanced soil regulators and nutrient generators, but even technology alone could not restore the forest. Mara led a team to plant seedlings along weakened soil ridges. Deathworlders followed silently behind, lifting fallen trees and placing rocks to create natural irrigation channels. Zephyrians, using their deep understanding of local plants, suggested which seeds to plant where, ensuring survival against harsh conditions. It was slow work, but steady. Mara noticed a small Zephyrian child carefully placing seeds alongside a Deathworlder. The child's tiny hands moved confidently, trusting the massive creature to leave space for the plants. The Deathworlder paused, observing, and then gently pushed a heavy branch to protect the seedlings. Mara whispered to Hart, This is more than helping a planet. This is building trust between species." Hart nodded. "Humans do it naturally. We understand cooperation is stronger than dominance. That's why we survive." Meanwhile, the Deathworlders had begun their own innovations. They taught humans and Zephyrians how to use natural terrain features for protection and water management. Small canals, terraces, and stone channels appeared where none had existed before. Humans adapted their technology to complement these natural methods. Zephyrians marveled at the ingenuity of combining natural resilience with advanced tools. One evening, Mara called a meeting in the city square. Humans, Zephyrians, and Deathworlders gathered, though the Deathworlders kept their distance, standing like silent guardians. Mara spoke through a translation device for the Zephyrians to understand. "We've done much already," she said. "The forests are beginning to grow. Rivers flow steadily. Cities are safer. But we are only starting. The planet is fragile, and our work continues. Together we can make Zephyria thrive again." Lyra, the Zephyrian scholar, stepped forward. "We have learned much from you. Your courage, your patience, your respect for life. Perhaps we can rebuild not just our world, but our understanding of each other." The Deathworlders made a low hum, a sound of agreement. Though no words passed, their presence was acknowledgement. They were beginning to accept cooperation. The next major project involved the cities themselves. Many buildings had collapsed or were unsafe. Humans assessed structures with precision scanners. Zephyrians noted architectural weaknesses, and Deathworlders lifted heavy stones and reinforced walls with strength that seemed almost unnatural. During one repair, Mara noticed a Deathworlder moving a massive stone slab with careful precision, ensuring it did not crush a newly planted seedling. She smiled. "They're learning too," she whispered to Hart. Hart watched quietly. "Yes, but humans didn't teach them by force. They teach by example, That is what makes this possible. By night, the city glowed faintly with restored energy. Small lights illuminated repaired streets, and faint music from Zephyrian instruments filled the air. Humans had not brought entertainment. They had brought presence and calm, which itself inspired joy. Deathworlders watched from shadows, still silent but no longer distant. A turning point came when an unexpected heat wave struck. Temperatures soared, threatening to undo weeks of progress. The rivers boiled in some areas, and seedlings wilted. Panic could have spread, but humans acted immediately. Mara and her team deployed portable cooling units and redirected water flow. Deathworlders used their strength to protect vulnerable areas and block heat surges with large stone barriers. Zephyrians guided placement to prevent soil damage. The coordinated effort worked. The heat wave passed with minimal destruction. Zephyrians looked at the humans and Deathworlders in awe. Perhaps survival is possible," said Lyra. Mara placed a hand on the child Zephyrian's shoulder. "It is possible, but only if we continue to work together." In the following days, trust deepened. Deathworlders allowed humans closer into their tunnels, showing secret water sources and safe passages. Zephyrians explored areas they had never dared enter, guided by the humans' calm approach. Together, they solved environmental challenges that had once seemed impossible. Forests expanded, rivers returned to their courses, cities stabilized, wildlife slowly returned, encouraged by the care of all three species. Humans, for their part, never imposed authority. They acted as guides, teachers, and partners. Their strength was in intelligence, courage, and patience, not in dominance or violence. Zephyrians and Deathworlders responded to this naturally, forming a cooperative system that was stronger than any one species alone. Mara observed from a hill overlooking the city. Zephyrians planted trees, Deathworlders moved boulders, and humans coordinated operations with calm precision. The scene filled her with pride. "This is what we came for," she said softly. Heart joined her. Not just to help the planet, to show that cooperation can overcome fear, that courage and respect matter more than strength. This is humanity at its best. As night fell, the three species gathered in the city square. A small bonfire burned, casting warm light over faces both human and alien. Lyra spoke softly. "We called for help, and it came in a way we did not expect. Humans, you have shown us that courage, intelligence, and respect can save not just a world, but its people." The Deathworlders made a deep, resonant hum, a sound of agreement. Though words were not spoken, understanding passed between them all. Zephyria was healing. Not fully, but enough to survive. And for the first time, all three species, humans, Zephyrians, and Deathworlders, understood that survival was not just about strength, but about cooperation and trust. Mara reflected on the progress. "This is only the beginning," she said. "The planet still has challenges, but now we can face them together." Hart smiled. "Humans survive Deathworlds, but what matters is what they do when survival is not enough. They inspire hope, build trust, and work with others. That is the real strength." The Zephyrians and Deathworlders, once wary of each other, now moved side by side. They shared knowledge, labor, and care. The humans had not only healed the planet, they had shown that different species could work together without fear or violence. The stars above Zephyria shone brightly, reflecting the calm determination of those below. A fragile, thriving world had begun to emerge. Humans had acted as catalysts, showing that courage, patience, and respect could transform even the most dangerous situations. And somewhere in the shadows of the planet, Deathworlders once hidden whispered among themselves. They had seen something unique in humans, not weapons, not conquest, but intelligence paired with heart. Perhaps they thought this was a species worth following. Zephyria had begun to heal. The humans had proven their worth not as conquerors, but as guides, teachers, and friends. And the world waited for the next steps, as cooperation and innovation had finally taken root. The sun rose over Zephyria, casting warm, golden light over a world beginning to heal. Where once the forest had wilted and rivers had boiled, green shoots and flowing streams now dotted the landscape. The cities of Zephyra, scarred by decay and neglect, had been stabilized. Walls no longer threatened collapse. Bridges, once broken, now carried life and laughter across the river channels. Humans moved quietly through the city, checking on ongoing projects and offering advice where needed. Mara Bennett stood atop a rebuilt observation tower, watching a group of Zephyrians carefully planting new trees along the edge of a recovering forest. Nearby, a Deathworlder guided fallen rocks into place, ensuring irrigation channels worked smoothly. The scene was peaceful yet powerful, a symbol of cooperation that had once seemed impossible. Commander Hart joined her at the tower. "It's amazing," Mara said softly, "to see this world alive again, and to see everyone working together." Hart nodded. "It's more than the technology or the tools. It's trust, respect, and patience. Humans didn't force the Zephyrians or Deathworlders to act. They simply led by example. And now all three species are working as one. The Zephyrians had changed as well. Their eyes, once filled with fear, now reflected hope and pride. They had learned the value of courage and initiative. Where before they had waited for rescue, now they actively contributed, guiding the restoration of forests, rivers, and cities. Lyra, the young scholar who had first approached Mara, smiled as she watched a Deathworlder gently move a massive boulder to protect a sapling. "I never thought we would survive," she whispered. "And yet, look at us. We are alive and stronger than before." Mara placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You didn't survive alone. You learned to work together. That's what makes your people strong, and now your world can thrive." The Deathworlders, once hidden in the shadows, had become an integral part of the recovery effort. Their strength and knowledge of extreme environments had proved invaluable. They no longer stayed at the edge of sight but worked openly alongside humans and Zephyrians. Though still quiet and reserved, their presence was a constant reassurance to all. One large Deathworlder approached Mara. It lowered its head in a gesture that seemed almost like respect. Mara knelt slightly, meeting its gaze. For a moment no words were spoken. Understanding passed silently between them. The humans had earned their trust. As the days progressed, the planet's ecosystem showed dramatic improvement. Rivers that had threatened to evaporate now supported wildlife once thought lost. Trees had returned to the forests, and small animals cautiously explored the recovering land. Humans and Deathworlders worked to reinforce these areas, ensuring that new plantings would survive. Zephyrians, now confident in their abilities, guided the placement of trees, predicting where water and sunlight would help the plants flourish. Mara observed a scene in the forest that made her heart swell. A Zephyrian child ran between Deathworlders and humans carrying seedlings to be planted. The child laughed as a Deathworlder gently nudged a large stone aside, and a human adjusted the irrigation system nearby. For the first time in generations, life on Zephyria was vibrant and joyful again. "We've done more than repair the planet," Mara said quietly to Hart. "We've shown them how to work together." Hart smiled. Humans survive in death worlds because they respect the challenges, not because they dominate them. That lesson is far more valuable than any machine or tool. The city of Zephyra was fully stabilized. Crumbling walls had been reinforced. Broken bridges were repaired. Homes and communal buildings were rebuilt with the cooperation of all three species. The Zephyrians had even adapted some human techniques into their architecture, combining technology with their natural understanding of the land. In the city square, Mara called a meeting with all participants, Zephyrians, Deathworlders, and humans. The crowd gathered, curious and cautious, yet excited by the progress. Mara spoke through a translator device so the Zephyrians could understand her fully. "Friends," she began, "we have come to your world to help. Together we have healed rivers, forests, and cities. But this is only the beginning. Your planet is resilient and your people are courageous. By working together, you can continue this progress on your own." Lyra stepped forward. We have learned much. We have learned courage, patience, and cooperation. Humans have shown us how to work together, and the Deathworlders have shown us strength. Perhaps now Zephyria can thrive as it never has before." The Deathworlders made a low, resonant hum. It was not words, but it carried meaning, agreement, and understanding. Humans watched quietly, knowing they had fulfilled their mission. For the humans, the work was coming to an end. Machines were packed, data was recorded, and preparations were made for departure. Mara and Hart walked through the recovering forest one last time. "Do you think they will continue without us?" Mara asked. Hart looked at the thriving trees, the flowing rivers, and the cooperative groups of Zephyrians and Deathworlders. Yes, humans taught them more than machines or tools could. They learned how to trust, how to cooperate, and how to survive together. That is a lesson that will last far longer than our presence. Mara nodded. It's strange to leave a place where we've made such a difference. Not strange, Hart said with a gentle smile. It's proof of what humans do best. We leave a world stronger than we found it. That's what sets us apart. The final day arrived. Humans boarded their ships, leaving equipment behind for Zephyrians and Deathworlders to maintain. As they lifted off from the restored landing zones, Zephyrians and Deathworlders gathered to watch. No words were spoken. The silence carried gratitude, respect, and understanding. Lyra approached Mara. "Thank you," she said softly. "You did not fight us or command us. You only showed us how to act and how to trust. That is more powerful than anything else." Mara smiled. "You had the courage all along. We only helped you see it. Remember that." The Deathworlders stood silently, watching the ships disappear into the sky. Their massive forms moved with grace and restraint, showing a rare acknowledgement of respect. Mara could feel their silent gratitude as clear as any spoken words. As the humans departed Zephyria, the planet shimmered in the morning light. Rivers flowed steadily, forests swayed gently in the wind, and the cities of Zephyra stood strong. Life was returning not just to the land, but to the hearts of those who lived there. Weeks later, Mara received reports from Zephyrian monitoring devices. Wildlife had returned in larger numbers. Forests were spreading beyond the initially restored areas. Deathworlders continued to work alongside Zephyrians, moving boulders, stabilizing terrain, and guiding new growth. The planet was thriving, not because humans remained, but because cooperation and trust had been established. Mara smiled at the screen. They did it. They proved that even the most fragile and the most resilient can work together. They don't need us anymore. Hart leaned back in his chair. Humans never needed to dominate. We only needed to guide. That is the lesson of Zephyria. Courage, intelligence, and respect can create miracles without weapons or conflict. Across the galaxy, Zephyria's recovery became known. Other species observed the humans' work, not as conquerors but as problem solvers, guides, and protectors. The galaxy had underestimated humans once. Now it could no longer. Back on the recovered city square, Zephyrians, humans, and Deathworlders had once gathered to coordinate. Now it remained a place of celebration. Zephyrians planted new trees, children ran among the recovering forests, and Deathworlders moved through the shadows, quietly maintaining balance. For Mara and Hart, the sight was perfect. They had come as outsiders and left as silent witnesses to a new era. Zephyria would survive, Zephyrians and Deathworlders would thrive, and the humans, ever curious and ever courageous, would continue exploring, helping, and inspiring worlds across the galaxy. As the sun set on Zephyria, Mara whispered to herself, "We answered the cry for help. And in doing so, we showed that humanity is capable of more than conquest. We are capable of hope." The stars above shone brightly, reflecting the renewed life below. Zephyria had entered a new era, one of unity, resilience, and cooperation. The humans had departed quietly, leaving behind not weapons but trust, not dominance but knowledge, not fear but hope. The galaxy had seen courage, intelligence, and empathy in action. And somewhere in the shadows of ancient caves, the Deathworlders had learned that even the strongest and most hidden beings could work together for a greater good. Zephyria would never be the same.